Welcome to the Concept 101 podcast. My name is Daniel.
Jules. Stefan.
We are three concept artists currently working in the film and games industry, as well as the organisers of the Concept 101 event in London. Today we have a very special, long-awaited episode and much feared episode, which we've wanted to record and we've spoken about recording it for a long time, but ultimately have always been too tired to do and emotionally distraught. So today we're talking about AI. Woo!
Not that we feel better.
We are so excited.
It is time.
Yeah, we've been considering talking about this for a very long time. Obviously, it's a very relevant issue in the industry. I think it's something that a lot of people kind of want opinions on in a way from different sections of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to run through a bunch of like pro AI arguments that we've heard and kind of respond to them. We're going to talk about a few like little case studies of like things that we've seen in the past, which are kind of relevant to this discussion. And we're also going to have a bit more of a loose chat afterwards about how we've seen it used in the industry and all that other good stuff.
Exactly, because a few of us have been working in industry through different sectors, which is film, TV, video games.
Yep.
And we've seen AI in some ways, and we haven't seen AI in other ways. So it's an interesting way we can talk about it.
I like the idea of not seeing it in some ways.
Yeah.
That would be a really good. You can be like, well, I didn't see it in the park. I didn't see it at lunch.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're going to start off with some arguments. I think one of the most common arguments, that all of us have heard is this constant comparison between like previous kind of like tech jumps. So one of the really common ones, and I'll list out a few here, is the comparison to photography. In like the 1800s, essentially, where photography came around and people were saying like, well, this will replace painting forever, and then it didn't. And then the comparison in our specific industry with 3D and Photobash, when that came around about Photobash was like about 20 years ago. 3D was about kind of like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And really it only gained popularity, I would say, within the last 5 to 6 years in a really big sense. So yeah, guys, like, do you have any kind of like initial feelings about these arguments? For me, I think they're pretty null and void, to be honest. But yeah,
I think it's a interesting view, but it's also very unrelated because AI is not the particular jump. Like it's not, it's creating the artwork for you essentially, and the other tools that were introduced, like Photobash or 3D, is something that helps you, that you need to learn then to use it in your process.
I guess AI has a far greater capacity to be a replacement than a tool.
Definitely.
And it takes out a lot more skills than it adds into the conversation.
Yeah, I think there's a very big differentiation to be made between a tool and a process, right? Yeah. A tool can be added to a process, right? The process can be fully replaced if you want, but then you have to change the whole process. And I think to me the AI is a different process to it, which we'll talk about it later, I guess, has a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
And so the way why photobashing or 3D have become quite successful and are being used today by artists is because it's a tool. And so it's not easy to learn, because I guess that a lot of people were scared at the time to having to learn it or to be replaced. Yeah. But with the time, it's got easy to imply the tool in our workflows to continue making the same kind of arts efficiently.
I think it's very important to remember as well that, for example, with photography, which is, I feel like, the first comparison people jump to outside of concept art, right, when they're talking about art replacement generally via AI, is that photography actually did replace a lot of artists.
Yeah.
I mean, it removed portrait photography, like portrait painting. That became far less common. And landscape painting became far less common. And on the one hand, that helped kind of revolutionize art, right? It led towards the creation of modern art and forced artists to think about new things. But by the same token, like, this idea that art never went away, well, it did actually in a very serious capacity. It did really limit the amount of paintings that were being made. So the idea that this is like some harmless thing that, painting survived. It's like, it did, but in a reduced capacity, as I think is now the worry for us, that concept art will survive, but potentially in a reduced capacity.
Yeah. And to link that to what I was saying before about the tool and the process, I think photography is actually a process. It's a new process, not a new tool for a painter, right? It's a new process to get to a final image.
Yeah.
So what you explained just now before was the fallout of a new process. Maybe it makes that the previous process is being used a bit less or being used in different ways. But that doesn't mean one process is going to be destroyed. It means that there are two processes coexisting for different purposes. If I want to take a selfie now, I'm not going to draw myself. That's insanely ineffective. I'm going to take my phone and take a picture, right? And I assume in the future there will be now 3 process or more of way to create art, and AI will have to be included in there. However, given the way we use it and given the way it's needed in our industry, I don't think it's the right process.
Yeah, I think honestly, for me, it doesn't matter how efficient it is. Like, there's this just to like jump ahead a little bit here, but there's this very like common argument that we all exist within this linear structure of time where the inevitable wheel of progress crunches forward and we're all crushed underfoot as science and technology pushes us away. But science and technology are extremely malleable to human society. And we are ultimately, whether it's on like a very, very large scale through the trillions of micro decisions that people make every day, we are kind of empowered to choose how these tools gets used. For example, if like AI starts to get used more heavily in movies, consumers are in the position of power to say, well, actually, I'm not going to watch a movie that's made by that, right? And that would force companies to use it less. In the same way, like in art teams, we are empowered to an extent to say to our bosses and our art directors,
or the clients,
hey, we're not going to use that depending on the position that you're in.
Yeah.
And I think that really does go a long way, and it's worth remembering that actually you have as an individual, especially if you group up with other people, as we saw with like the No AI thing on ArtStation, or the like amazing legal battle that Carlo Ortiz is helming with the Concept Art Association. Like, there are groups of people who are actively doing stuff to push this technology in the correct direction rather than allowing it to become this all-encompassing replacement for what we do.
It was interesting. I had a conversation with a friend that I met with. I haven't seen him for a while, and he just finished his architecture degree. And we just sat down, this friend in Slovakia. I was visiting Slovakia over the Christmas, and he's like, he starts talking about AI like right away. He's like, oh, so what do you think about AI? Like, it's gonna replace everything. Like, like it can do visualizations for architecture really fast and stuff like that. And I think he was surprised to know. I told him, I was like, well, I think it just depends on the response of the community. I think like if the community decides to adapt, if the community of all the artists decides to go against it, it's like with the writers' strikes, if the companies won't have a chance to say no, because they know you cannot replace a good artist by a shitty artist with AI right now. That is not the case. So you will always need good artists using AI or just good artists deciding not to use it. And right after that, he was like, okay, well, I guess that's true. It's like if the community decides to push against it and that's its response, then it will be fine.
I guess as well, it's interesting you're saying, like, for example, this thing about, like, well, AI is not good enough to replace a good artist. I presume that if there are no legal limitations on what these companies can do and every legal battle against them fails, there will come a time in our lifetime where they probably can produce stuff that is, quote unquote, better than what a person can make. I still don't think it's there personally, but I presume in our lifetime it probably will happen.
Yeah, totally.
But I think what's important to remember is, like, who cares? Like, to me, it doesn't matter. It's never been a conversation from my point of view about how good the AI is, because we all knew when this technology started, even when people were joking about melty hands and all this stuff, like, we all knew it was going to get here. It's almost an inevitability.
Yeah, for sure.
But by the same token, like, what is important, from your perspective as a consumer of art or as a creator of art, is it just the quality of the art? Because to me, like, as an artist myself, the reason I love consuming people's work on ArtStation, for example, is not to be like, oh, holy shit, Romain Jondot, like, that really is the best photo bash I've ever seen. It's because I get an insight into Romain Jondot. Do you know what I mean? It's more about the personal relationships that you have with the artists, the personal relationship you have with the director when you're watching a film, the crew, the people who work on these things. Like, that is what I think is meaningful. And I don't think that's replicatable through AI, because it immediately like almost bleaches and washes all of the interest out of it.
The AI completely kills the process. The process is fully replaced, right? And so there's no mystery, there's no like
There's no
ideation
conversation.
behind it,
Yeah.
there's no conversation, there's no
story.
there's no
Yeah.
there's no iteration.
There's no failing, and through
Yeah.
failing, learning what to do better. You know.
It just spits you a fan. Like, think about it. Why would you? I mean, it might be a bold comparison, but if you listen to a musician, it's because you know they made the music. They spent a lot of time. They made the music. You know, spent a lot of time doing it, and then you go see them live because they are playing the music. This is a human playing it.
Yeah.
Would you do the same? Like, would you pay £90 to go see Daft Punk live if it was just you putting play on Spotify? No, right? The value is because you see the artist. The value is the artist. And so I think the human has a very big part in there, and that's why it gives the feeling about art that people have. What people consume art is because there's people behind it.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but I noticed over the last like year, really, like more and more accounts which are like AI art dream following me, you know, like bullshit accounts essentially.
Because it's a new trend.
Yeah,
You know, it's trendy, so people like it.
But what I find interesting is that when it started, a lot of those accounts had a lot of followers. But now, more and more of them following me like every week. And I presume that these must be people who are actually interested in art, because sometimes I look at them and I'm like, okay, who do they follow? And it's like all the same people I follow. But what's really interesting is if you look at who they follow, it's not other AI art accounts. They follow artists, you know, real artists.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really funny is that, like, I think as time goes on, surely it's just an inevitability that even the people who are making AI art will lose interest in AI art.
Yeah.
Because especially if you think about like Instagram and social media, why would you follow somebody who uses it? It's not a genuine insight into anything they do, and you're not following them, you're following their usage of a tool, which is very, very different. It's not a true expression of anybody's personality or interests. It's just this watered down output.
I mean, I'm sure those people who use AI there, it could be their expression, right? But like they're trying to, I know they're just typing in prompts, but I mean, they're surely trying to create something. But the problem is that it's watered down by the AI and them seeing a cool image, almost like reacting to be like, oh, that's cool, and that's it. They don't think beyond that much, most likely.
I think it's really interesting as well that, for example, I'm sure because we're all like fairly developed artists now, you'll get what I'm saying here. But when you start off, you think in your head like, man, I have this amazing idea of a swordsman. If only I could draw it, everybody would see what a genius I am, right? You have this, like, especially when you're inexperienced, you have this thing, you're like, that would be the coolest concept ever. But as you grow in experience and you get better at drawing, what you really learn is to kind of like better visualize the things and the ideas in your head, and you have a much stronger like process of like actually being able to see these things as they evolve and being able to iterate just in your own brain before anything even goes onto the paper. And so I think like you only get that from making art. Like you'll never get that from using AI. And so those people who are like truly expressing themselves, they don't have the kind of like literally like the neuron connections to really understand what they're expressing.
Or, maybe people that, I think people that consume AI art, at the end, they're probably fairly similar to us. They just like art, And maybe by not knowing how art is made, they just find the same wow effect that they might find on an artist image into an AI image because they just have no clue how it's made. The image is in front of them, happy about it. But maybe AI, a good thing about it is that maybe more people will get interested about it. More people will try to make AI art, and then they will be like, "Oh, actually, how is that made for real?"
Yeah.
and then they would, it's like being a fan of a musician and then starting to learn guitar yourself. Should at the start, and then you get into it. Imagine now you press a button, you know how to learn guitar. I mean, I don't know. It seems a bit hard.
But I think that's exactly the thing is with guitar. Even you might think a lot of people start guitar because they're like, "Hey, I have music that I want to make."
Yeah.
But as you learn to actually express that music on your guitar, you're like, "Oh, these ideas suck." It's like only once you can actually express what's actually in your head directly, like with your own hands, with your own skills, that you really know how much you suck ass.
So you're talking about here is like the problem of like being excited about something and then drawing it and realizing that it's not as cool as you thought initially. Yeah.
Because like when I was younger, I remember thinking like all the time like in my head about like literally like cool anime swordsman. I mean like fucking hell, like if I could do this.
And then you start drawing it and you're like, Oh, it's so bad.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, even we were talking with a colleague recently who likes to draw seagulls, right?
Yes.
And I was saying to them, like, your perception of a seagull is going to be very different to my perception. Like, the way that you draw it is going to be the way that you think about it. And the way that I draw it is going to be my way that I think about it. It's not just, like, improving as an artist is not just about improving your mechanical skills. It's about improving the way that you see and think about art.
Yeah.
And that's what I think often gets left out of this conversation of people, quote unquote, expressing themselves with AI, is that they can never truly express themselves because they never establish the ability to do it.
Yeah, so by removing the humanity aspect of it and the process aspect of it, AI loses its identity, I guess. And it just, because instead of being influenced by an artist who's been influenced by many people, it's being influenced by many people. Yeah. So, it doesn't boil down to having an artist directing it. It boils down to just get endless data, throwing into it and spitting something which is a bit of a polymorph of any bullshit that the internet has to give.
Totally. I think as well, it's like, so just to bring this back to like us being younger artists again, but when you're a younger artist, right, let's say that you could have just like insta-learned like how to do somebody's style, right? Like for me, like Pablo Dominguez, always loved his work when I was like learning. And I really, like, for a very long time, I was like, I'm going to do the same style of work as his. And there's probably some influence of his style of work in my work. But our work looks nothing alike because of all of the influence that I have as a person. If I had just jumped in and, like, like you do in AI, typed in the style of Pablo Dominguez.
4K, Canon.
Yeah. But it never, like, my style would have never developed. So all of these people who, it's like you kind of deny yourself the pleasure of becoming a fully formed artist by using it because you immediately jump to, well, actually, I'm going to do this. And I think it comes down to a lot of people just not understanding the subtlety of difference between artists, like not understanding the difference between, like Sorolla and Rembrandt, right? Like two artists who, both use oils, but are very, very different and make incredibly beautiful stuff that's an expression of themselves. Like, that's what really matters at the end of the day. Even in a highly commercialized field like concept art, when you get hired for a project at like the top level, people hire you for you, not because, hey, this guy knows how to draw cars really good. It's because this guy has a really unique perception of cars.
The vision, because his body of work has something that we need for the set project.
Exactly.
So we're gonna get that guy because we know that he can provide with the quality and the subject or the visual entity that we need for said project.
Totally.
How about the thing with AI that it can't read our director's mind?
I can't read art director's mind either.
Can't. Oh yeah.
But like no, but that's right. It's a skill that you like even only an experienced artist has, I guess. Like it's learning like what Let's say someone tells you what they want, right? If you don't have the visual library to start with as an artist, to be able to go, like, as people are talking, to be able to go, okay, not this, not this, not that, right? Then, then you have a lot of iterations that you'll have to do, and a lot of the iterations the art director will have to reject or agree on until you start to get the visual kind of what they want. And, like, this surely cannot be sped up by AI being very good.
Exactly,
no matter what. It has to be by the artist knowing how to create the art, knowing what's the right thing, and then just going for it.
Also because the job of a concept artist is not to just make a final image.
Yeah.
Never in my life my job was to just make a final image. That's it. It's a conversation throughout a few days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe more, where it's back and forth in countless steps. And at the final level, when you finish all these steps, then you have a final image. And if you cut all these steps, the final image will always be a mess. Yeah. It's never going to be exactly what the person wants, the client wants. And you cannot have such a level of interaction with someone if you don't spend the time to speak with, a human, And this you lose with AI because you instantly have a final image. And by experience in the industry, people that try using AI
I don't think I've seen anybody successfully do a project with it.
Constantly miss.
I think as well, one of the really important things you've kind of like jumped on there is this idea of reading the art director's mind and getting what they want out. And I think the important thing to remember is that as a concept artist, often your job is not to give them what they want, it's to give them what they never knew they wanted.
Yeah.
And that is the joy of working in a creative industry, is not being a machine that's like shits out exactly the thing that they wanted when they said, I want a red car. It's about giving them options that make them go, fuck, I never thought of that. That's so cool. That is the pleasure of working in concept art or any artistic industry, is like bringing your own feelings to the table and really being like, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to make. And yeah, like I think just to put this out there, I think there is a certain level of egotism from certain people at certain levels in the industry, maybe people, art directors and above, who actually use this stuff commercially or like try to finish projects with it, who think they're just better than everybody else and they don't need anybody else's involvement. And I think that is really fucking sad, to be honest. It's like, if you're listening to this podcast and you're sitting there at home going like, yeah, well, my ideas are so fucking good that I never need to talk to anybody. Get a grip. Get a fucking grip. You are not that good. No one's that good. Like, and
also, like, honestly,
it's just
like,
sad. It's just sad to
like
me.
also look at the best. I mean, whenever you hear about the best directors and stuff like that, like what do? They're very good at what? Collaboration.
Yeah, they're great at hiring the right people, right?
Exactly. They know.
A good director hires good artists on the time.
And they know, like, okay, this person is good at this, so I will let them do their thing.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna try to micromanage them, because if you micromanage them, you're just like insecure, thinking that. Well, no, I mean, like,
I agree with you. Yeah,
honestly,
insecure,
I think it's just about. It's very mature to see someone who, like, is an art director, to go like, look, I trust you. I want to see what you can create, and then the artist feels like, okay, it's on me. Yes, it's a lot of pressure to create something good, but now the artist feels a lot more involved and is going to try extra harder, rather than having someone who is like, I know I will paint with your hand, but through my like telekinetic, I don't know, I'm going to connect to your hand and paint with whatever, rather than like, if you do that, then the artist is never going to feel like they have their ability to express themselves. And you might miss out on great ideas.
Yeah, I think that ultimately the best art is collaborative. It's the idea of this, like, it's a little bit like I think we spoke about it like maybe last year, about like this thing with like art, like digital artists who want to use the round brush for everything, and they're like, I'm better because I use the round brush. It's just a fiction of the imagination. Just as like there's this fictional idea that like directors on films are great because, wow, this guy's like such an independent thinker, like Quentin Tarantino or whatever. Quentin Tarantino has literally hundreds of people around him at all times to help him create these things. He might write the script, but he also has script writers with him. He might direct, but he also has second and first ADs and everything.
I mean, that's how you get shit done, right? You hire people who are as competent or more competent than you to help you doing it.
That's why I work with you guys.
Elon Musk, Elon Musk didn't make this fucking spaceship, right?
Yeah.
He's hired a team of scientists and engineers who know their shit.
Yeah.
And thanks to them, the spaceship is going to space.
Yeah.
And so you need people to be able to be grand projects, to throw ideas out there, to discuss, to debate, to fail, but then to progress.
I think part of it is related to like the myth of genius, right? Like the myth of one person being better than everyone else, But reality is, if you have enough people collaborating on one idea, that idea will come out as a genius. And there might be one as a genius idea, and there might be one person behind it that looks like the representation in like Elon Musk. But as you said, really it's a collaboration. Those kind of massive genius ideas are a collaboration.
Yeah, there's a very good graduation speech that Arnold Schwarzenegger did. I love Arnie. I mean, Arnie's a great guy, right? We all love Arnie. Yeah. But it's very, very good.
Get to the chopper.
That's what he said.
You don't need to do the accent. You already sound like him. But the really nice thing that he said, and he talks about it. He talks about his time going to Gold's Gym. And how, like Arnold Schwarzenegger is seen as like somebody who like worked incredibly hard, like immigrant coming into America. Like he is he's like the American dream, right? He's like the guy. And the thing that he said was, he talks about how when he came to America, he had no money, he had nothing. He was renting a shitty apartment, and he was getting into Gold's Gym. That's where a lot of his money went. And when Thanksgiving came around, he had nothing. He had no friends, no family to be with. And so all of the guys from Gold's Gym came down, they brought him plates, they brought him food, they brought him knives and forks, they brought him furniture. And he said that, like, they were the people who helped him get through his life. And he said, I think the thing that he says at the end is like, you can say that I'm a hardworking person, but never say that I'm a self-made man. And I think that is, I mean, isn't that what fucking life is about? Like community and spending time with people that you care about and enjoying the collaborative process, whatever it may be, whatever you do. Sitting in your room by yourself is no fun. Like it's the most joy that I've felt on projects has honestly not been my personal projects. It's been the projects that I've done for clients, and the client wants my opinion and I want their opinion, and the other artists working on it are doing amazing jobs. That's the most fun.
Just wait until we have like AI robots talking to us, and then we won't feel alone anymore.
So we can just live out her or
then we can just be in our room and talk to AI. Yeah. That'd be great.
Just to jump this back as well a little bit, because we didn't talk about it. What do you guys think about the 3D and the Photobash comparison? Personally, I think it's a load of nonsense.
It's totally different. It's all different. I think the photography and AI comparison is right, I think, or it makes more sense to me, much more sense. Not maybe not right, but makes more sense to me than the 3D and photobashing. Photobashing and 3D are tools that we can adapt to our process, and they don't do anything creative. Yeah, it's a tool to get from point A to Z rather than just something that brings you to point Z without doing anything.
Yeah. I think as well, the interesting comparison to be made between 3D and Photobash and AI is that 3D and Photobash are things that as a community we have set rules around, right? For example, photobashing, if you want to make a photobash image, you don't take two images and just blend them together and call it a concept, right? Because you're taking too much, you're stealing too much. There wasn't enough work involved with that. You don't photobash other people's paintings, right? That's also like an unspoken rule in the industry. Same with 3D, like, although less so, but I think it's becoming more of a thing. For a long time now, we've had a lot of images which are 100% kitbash. And we've had people buying like assets for like £300 off like big fancy websites. And then they put them in the middle of their image and they call it a concept. And I think that is becoming less common and less acceptable now as well, because people are realizing that there isn't much place in the industry. Like you can't just buy an asset for every project, right? And so these are all things where like, actually the comparison that I like here is that, well, actually, even with Photobash and 3D, we did all set up and perceive that there were negative things in the industry that they were doing. And we have attempted as a community to put not laws, but rules around them and how people use them. And, you know, I'm fucking sure as hell, like if you took somebody's 3D asset, like if you downloaded for the charity bundle, right? You downloaded Noax's like 3D model that he did. You put it in a fucking keyframe, right?
We should do that.
Put it in a keyframe, rendered it, put it on ArtStation, was like, here's my new keyframe. You'd get a lot of shit for that because it's not your design. It's not your image.
In your house. It would be like you would open the door and then close it and then run because you would be just scared shitless, dude.
But I see him walking very slowly.
Yeah, exactly.
Very determined. You cannot run fast enough. He's always gonna catch you.
Yeah, you just see him
by walking
from far away from your window. You go like, that's it. Let's go.
But anyway, the point is, right, like, we still all acknowledge that there's bad use cases for these things. And I think it's one of those big things that is missing from this conversation. Is like, all those people are like, oh, AI is the best. I fucking love AI. And it's like, bro, like, do you not acknowledge that there's a negative influences to these things? We can acknowledge it for everything else, but it's so frustrating for this to be, because it's like the new hot thing that everybody's just like, well, actually, this is God. I literally, I feel like sometimes people fucking worship this shit. It annoys me so much.
But this also brings to the point that, yes, there are bad things, but there also might be good things, right? We're not here trying to say that everything is bad and it should be burned and we never should see the light of it again, you know? We don't know how things will evolve, but it's possible that in the future, if things go our ways, hopefully, there might be things where we say like, oh yeah, of course, training AI based on stolen data and blah, blah, and using it to make a whole image might be wrong, but maybe in the future, it might be seen as a way to get photos to Photobash, you know? Or like, it's not everything is to throw away. We're not trying to like say it's a devil. But
I mean,
it's good to have a critical mindset of it and also see what's, you know, with Photobashing, if I just take an image of a photograph and draw a stickman on it, it's stealing. Same with AI. Like, there are obvious bad ways to use it, and it's good to just slow down, take a step back, and stop freaking out for a second and realize that some stuff are bad or good.
Yeah, I mean, AI has been used in the industry for years. I mean, we've all used content-aware fill. That's AI, functionally. Very, very similar. Now they have the more advanced version of it where you can type in what you want. That's getting a little bit dodgy, I think. I think as well, like, for example, I know that one big problem I had, so for example, Napoleon came out recently, something I worked on, I did a lot of nature shots for that, of these battle scenes. A lot of trees needed to be found, a lot of pictures of snow with the light facing the correct direction. Now, would I have said no to a bit of AI that allowed me to change the direction of the sun
just
from
to get the
the
right
left
tree.
to the right on a tree that I really needed? No, probably not. And I think that's the thing is like, yeah, there's totally like, because again, like something like photo bashing or matte painting is extremely skill intensive. And there are things in photo bashing and matte painting that are just frustrating that you would want to kind of skill out essentially, because it doesn't make you a better artist just because you had to spend 5 hours on Google search finding the right image.
It's like easing the process or skipping it.
Yeah.
And if you want to ease it to give the artist more direction and to become a better artist essentially,
Yeah.
then you might as well use a tool.
Also, I think one of the reasons why we just like quickly going back about the setting the rules about like Photobash and 3D and stuff like that, is because if you have these kind of rules, it allows you to go towards more creative routes and create more unique ideas. You know, like how people go, oh, try not to use other people's images in your reference board, right?
Yeah.
Like I've been building. We have a new task at work, and I've been doing mood boards recently, just for like a day or something, and some sketches, and it really helped to like every now and then I would put like a painting into the mood board because it would be like, okay, this is kind of like good example of something, but majority of it I was trying to find the images through nature or through whatever photography I could find, and it allows you to just like look at shapes in a different way, find interesting ideas by just looking at a photo that's not even related to the subject sometimes, and also that makes you a better artist, makes you create more unique ideas rather than just having the answer right in front of you. And if you just put bunch of other paintings into your mood board, then guess what, your painting will look like some of those paintings, and it will be just the same thing. Everyone will be like, oh, that looks kind of like that game.
And I think it's worth mentioning that there is, I mean, fuck knows how much evidence at this point of AI doing literally that and just copying people's fucking paintings almost one-to-one. I posted that thing like a week ago of all of the film frames. I don't know if you saw that.
The Avengers and stuff.
Yeah, like you type in like an unrelated prompt about like a man with a mustache looking tough in a red metal suit, and it comes up with almost exactly the same frame from Avengers of Iron Man, and it's like, that is fucking ridiculous. I think as well, like, it's worth remembering that one of the reasons that these companies are so against the idea of retraining their models and are fighting so hard to not get legally done in by, Carla and Concept Art Association, all these other people, and all the other companies who are fucking suing them, is because if they lose the data, they have to retrain the model from scratch.
Yeah.
And that puts them back years, and God knows what the output will look like if they can't use non-commercial stuff.
We kind of know the output because you have Photoshop, Adobe, or you have like Shutterstock that have now their own AI, which are trained on legal data sets.
Sure.
Much more legal data sets, but you can see that these AI are much less powerful.
But
they just don't they don't even get close to Midjourney or the others.
But unfortunately, even with those, like I might be misremembering here, so fact check this yourself at home. But because we're not going to do it, fuck that. We're just lying constantly.
We have ChatGPT here telling us what to do.
This whole podcast has been written by ChatGPT.
Like, I've seen evidence that like you can just type, like you can get outputs that are very similar to modern artists' work, like living artists. I'm hoping that Disney just nukes OpenAI, to be honest, or just buys it and shuts it down or something.
I won't have much faith in Disney.
I mean,
who knows?
Look, they don't want people doing Mickey Mouse porn. Okay,
That's too late.
It's too late. Yeah, sorry.
What do you think I was doing this morning, man?
Yeah.
One more thing. I think it's quite good to also draw, because I just mentioned ChatGPT. I think it's quite good to talk about ChatGPT as well.
Yeah.
Because what do you guys think about it?
I also don't like it.
Yeah, and also I feel like it's brought up the AI issue to a lot of people other than artists.
That's good.
Which is very good. And it's also good to not just keep the discussion to art, but also to all the other skills and all the other jobs and all the other elements that's going to affect, and how almost 90% of any industry,
well, white collar work specifically, right?
is not using AI because it just either is not good enough at the moment, or it doesn't fit into what's needed related to what we're talking about, the process and the ideation and all that. or it just brings too many legal issue at the moment, right? Like even when AI is powerful enough, well, companies are too scared to use it because it's obviously stolen.
I think one just to come to the ChatGPT thing.
Yeah.
My biggest concern with that is, like, for example, on Google now, on GChats, which is what we use at work, when you get a message from somebody, it gives you auto responses.
Yeah.
And when you get an email, it gives you an auto email response that you can just like generate. And, you can do all of this stuff. And my big concern, and it extends to the art as well, is that we're, worst case scenario, which again, I don't think will happen, fingers crossed. But worst case scenario, I think we're just generating meaningless bullshit forever, where you're not talking to a person anymore. You're sending a ChatGPT message that gets responded with a ChatGPT message that gets responded with that. And nobody ever actually takes in the information. And it's just like peak techno-babble crap.
I've got a funny thing to say. So Lamdo is our sound designer for the podcast. And I've just been jokingly sending him messages on LinkedIn, which is the autofill from LinkedIn. Right. And this morning I was just spamming him like, I hope you're well, thank you. I hope you're well, thank you. Because that's all the AI was giving me.
Yeah.
So yeah, like related to that. So sometimes also this AI, I can't do anything. So I send him like 20, I hope you're well, thank you. Because the AI was in the loop. So
even this is so ridiculous, but for example, now if you have meetings on Google or Zoom, I think it can give you like a synopsis of the meeting.
Yeah.
So it listens to what you're saying, and then
you're gonna get fired.
Yeah, and it like cuts down like what
job.
you're saying. And like I was in a meeting with somebody, and we started joking about like, I don't know, like whiskey or something, or I don't know what it was, something random, right?
Oh yeah, it was
yeah, and it was with you, and then I clicked on like summarize the meeting at the end, and it came up with like, Jules thinks everyone should get drunk in the office and have whiskey. Daniel wants to die. And it's like, so it didn't, you know what I mean? It's like, it's so
Incredible,
interesting
dude.
because just
Incredible.
imagine how much fucking misinformation could be outputted just from that alone.
Well, I don't know.
Your
Maybe Jules does want to.
We all want to drink whiskey at work, okay?
Dan wants to die.
Yeah.
No.
But I mean, seriously, it's crazy to think about like all of these like quote unquote helpful use cases that we're being given with AI and how fucking useless 99% of it is.
It's a lot of laziness.
Yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I mean,
I think that's pretty comparable to the art as well, because I will say, not to generalize, gang, but the vast majority of people who I see using AI are, and again, not to generalize, they are much older artists who have had a very long, happy career making great projects, and now they're fucking bored. And they don't really like making art anymore. They are too busy dealing with their lives and their kids and all this stuff. And so they're just like, well, fuck it. I'll just do some AI because I want to make art, quote unquote. And if you're one of those people listening, fucking stop it. Like, I think I can speak for most artists. I think most people would rather see a sketch from somebody that you've done in 20 minutes rather than an AI generation that you've done in 20 minutes.
Yeah. And I'd rather see bad art because it's going to tell me more about the artist and more about the joy that they have been doing.
Exactly.
It. And yeah, this comes also to I think people have been saying that it doesn't matter to be having fun in your work or making art. And I think that's not true. I think, I guess we're very lucky to be doing a job that we enjoy and that we take fun in, we take pride in doing. And I don't see why this new software should stop us or should decredibilize. Can you say that?
I don't know what you just said.
That's probably French turned English.
Decriminalize.
So it should make this not relevant anymore.
Okay.
So I think it should still be relevant to have fun at work.
Absolutely.
And it should stop because you can just do it instantly and that's it, Like,
so what you're saying that it's good to keep the concept art careers because it makes people happy or what?
I think the argument where people say, well, it doesn't matter if you're happy or not, we just need to get a job done is not valid, Like, if you tell another bad comparison. If you tell a baker he's not gonna make his fucking cakes in the morning, and he just has to press a button, I don't think he would like it. I'm pretty sure he likes the process. I'm pretty sure he likes making his own craft, making his art, and the cakes are probably gonna end up better tasting as well because he put so much love into that.
It's very Marxist of you, Jules. giving the people their means of production and all that. I mean, you know what? It's funny. I don't want to get too much into like because I don't really consider myself like a communist or anything. But like
Well, you're dressed all in red.
I'm dressed all in red and I have a big star on my head.
And you have a weird mustache.
What the fuck, then?
But in like like even in like essentially like communist theory, like one of the like I think valid things is this idea of like people having access to their means of production, and we've already had a reduction of that in our industry because of we're reliant on programs like Adobe, who now own a lot of the software that we use, right? And they just keep buying more and more of it up. And to then go a step further and say, well, actually the whole process is now going to be given to OpenAI or Stable Diffusion is insane to me. You're literally removing any means of production there and just handing it over to corporations, which ultimately, like, I know that people, like, in the short run, although companies are generally very short-term thinking, right? In the short term, I'm sure that if they fired everybody and replaced us all with AI, they'd probably make a profit. But it's delusional to me to think that those companies, once they become the majority shareholders and every company's reliant on them, that they wouldn't just up the fucking price until it was the same as hiring all the artists.
Or more.
Yeah.
And also, just, again, you are what you consume in a way. So I don't think I'm pretty sure very soon we're going to see a all AI made movie in the cinemas because it's going to be the trend, right? But that's going to be trendy and that's all. But people won't want to keep watching AI movies forever. I mean, I'm not even sure. I mean, I think most of them are not very happy about watching any at the moment.
Yeah.
And if, it's again, what bad comparison can I make? Like, do you rather eating like chocolate made by a very talented chocolate maker, chocolatier, yes indeed, or a fucking like machined chocolate, right? There's a clear difference in value in those.
It's craftsmanship
place to
versus
exist.
manufacturers. Yeah.
But like another one clearly has value, and also they don't cancel each other. That's also something very important. There is a place where both can coexist as soon as the value differentiation is set, and I think it's being set. It has to be set with time as well. Like a year ago, AI was much weirder, and people were like, "Oh, it's going to replace everything." And now we see that maybe AI will replace lower tier artworks, that kind of stuff.
I would say, preferably for me, it replaces nothing.
Well, I agree with you, but I don't think it will replace nothing personally.
I'll hold out hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I hope a lot of stuff that will probably never happen. So, gotta have hope in life.
I think the whole... Oh, I forgot what I want to say.
Quick, type it in the chat, GBT.
Yeah.
Shit. Hi, Siri.
I wonder if... I mean, I don't know. Maybe AI will replace some things. But...
Stop thinking.
So,
no.
So while Stefan tries to remember what he's talking about, there's another argument that I think is really important, which is this idea of speed, right?
Yeah.
AI, it outputs artwork faster than an artist. They can do the job better than an artist. Like, this is insane to me, this argument, because it's very simple. Is concept art slow in terms of the overall production of anything? No.
It's the fastest.
No. We are the fastest and the cheapest step of production compared to everything. And the idea that it needs to be any faster is ludicrous to me.
Yeah, and the impact that concepts has on the production is
massive.
It's massive.
Yeah.
And the money you could lose by having bad concepts or bad pre-production down the line is also huge. So the speed, I think, if you just go and get something very fast, just to get it very fast and get to the next step, it might have a huge downfall on any project.
Yeah.
I know what I want to say. It's related partially to speed. Is the thing with having too much social media to consume.
Okay.
Almost like if even if concept art is like going to be 10 times faster, and 3D art will be, and eventually we'll have like 10 video games coming out every day, right? And like 10 new amazing movies, right? Like there is not enough time in a day with people doing their jobs fully to be able to consume this much.
And even if people
media.
weren't doing their jobs, they wouldn't want to consume that much media anyway.
Yeah, because it's just all going to be diluted, and I don't know, man.
There's already, like, I think we can all agree there's too much media out there already. Like, I would rather have a slightly more pared down version of the industry in a way, personally speaking, than it already is.
And people like to wait for a good movie, right? Like, I like to have a wait to be like, okay, like, everyone has opinions about the Dune movies, but like, let's say the new Dune movie is coming out. I am happy that I have to wait for it. Then it coming out the next day, the first movie comes out. It's just like that is not my. I like to wait for it.
Yeah, it's nice to even the rise of streaming and the binge watching of TV shows. Personally speaking, like Stefan, when we watched Physical 100, fucking excellent TV show.
Yeah,
that was great because we got to watch it week by week on Netflix. Not because it was all out at once. We got to sat there, then we would have a chat about it the day after, and be like, "That was a really good episode."
And then you
when
get to be excited
about
it for the whole week, and then you see it again, and you're like, "Oh, let's watch another episode."
Absolutely, like that. That is and I think what's important to remember is like the joy of that comes from the community aspect of things and interacting with other people. I've seen so many articles on the Singularity subreddit, which is an interesting subreddit to read. It talks about like not just AI, but like essentially this, it's like this theoretical point where humans like evolve essentially and technology becomes everything and blah, 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 blah. Probably won't happen in our lifetimes, or ever, maybe. But, one of the interesting things that I see come up so much in relation to Midjourney and ChatGPT on there is this idea of people being able to generate their own video games and movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I just...
Like on the fly to what you like.
To be like, I want to watch a funny action film with Jackie Chan in it with spaceships. And the idea of
give people what they want and until they realize that's not what they want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The idea that would be successful is insane to me. And I think it's such a minute group of, like, to be honest, internet neats who really think that's a good idea because, again, they're smarter than everybody. Oh, nobody makes movies that are good enough for me. Nobody makes TV shows that are good for me. Like, get your head out of your fucking ass, man. Yeah. Like, you're not that brilliant. Nobody is. Like, that's...
Except the three of us, of course.
Well, no, we're great.
Come on. No, but...
Also, my AI-generated movies would be chef's kiss.
Most of the successful movies or video games, they all are not liked by everyone.
Yeah.
Only a few are enjoyed by everyone, and even then you have haters for most things. And The Last of Us or The Last of Us 2, extremely polarizing to people, right? Some people hate it, some people love it, but at least I really like it. But if you make a game that everyone likes, I think it becomes a bit of everything at the same time, and then it becomes a bit diluted, and then it becomes a bit nothing, which is a bit to what AI is at the moment. It's a bit nothing because it's a bit of everything. And then if you don't take a side, or if you don't have someone's mindset or like an idea behind something, then you don't really create anything interesting. And if you just follow what people or what an algorithm thinks you would like, I personally don't believe it's gonna be successful for a very long time. It might be a novelty because every novelty is successful at some point because people like to, it's future or whatever. But it's going to die quickly. NFTs are not here anymore, right? Oh, they're here, but it's a niche.
Whenever you make something as well, there's always an inevitable backlash to whatever you make. You look at, I did want to talk about this, but you look at, for example, the mass manufacturing industry in fashion, right? Which did cut out a lot of jobs in like Europe, because manufacturing was cheaper abroad. Well, the response to that was more fashion houses that make stuff in Europe or, are more auteur-led and have more artist teams around them. Like, Louis Vuitton and Maison Margiela and, Balenciaga, whatever you think of those brands, they are ultimately brands that try to fill in the gaps of like what mass manufacturing can't do. In a similar but different way, graphic design, for example, I wanted to talk about this. Graphic design is such a good use case of AI in comparison to our industry. Because graphic design, if you look at like logo concepts, for example, has had AI that can make logos for over 20 years because logos are very simple shapes that you combine together. And there's many, many websites, and there always have been many websites that have been able to generate logos. And what has happened to the graphic design industry? Fucking nothing. A few minor jobs, like the job where like your neighbor comes around to your house and says, hey, I want a logo for my new construction company. I'll give you £10. That's gone away because now they'll use that service to buy a £10 logo
and
online,
sometimes it's not even gone away. Yeah, because sometimes they don't even know about this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Maybe today they would know.
Yeah, but this is the thing: is like the graphic design industry has flourished. They still charge people 10 million for a new logo for their company. They still do complete rebrands, and what they do is far more replaceable by AI than what we do. Yeah. And yet, as a community of people, they just said, "Nah, fuck that," and they just haven't used it. And I think it's really interesting because, like, even I have a friend who works in graphic design because I studied it at university, so a lot of my friends work in it. But I have one specific friend who told me like he thought it was good because it meant that like smaller teams could come up with more like higher output ideas. like AI specifically, right? And I said, well, what about all of the logo generators that have been around for the last 20, 30 years? I was like, and he was like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, yeah, well, those have been around for a long time, right? No one used them, and they do exactly the same thing as the now quote unquote AI powered logo generators. I mean, it's pretty laughable to me. And I think it's a very good reminder to everybody in the concept art industry that, look, there are actually other artistic industries that have gone through a process of attempted replacement and attempted like mechanization, essentially, which have just told those studios to fuck off and die. And they've been fine, and they're still profitable, and they still have entry-level positions and all this other stuff.
So should we talk about the fact that there are some jobs that are maybe going away a little bit in concept art, not necessarily in the AAA studios or anything?
Well, the reality is that obviously, as you guys wouldn't know.
You know
right?
what I was saying? Actually, I think furry art is still not going away.
Furry art. I think you're very safe if you're doing furry art.
Yeah, I was talking with someone, and he was like, "Nah, I mean, I don't do furry art personally."
No, it's too late. We know you don't.
But I
So much money.
paying other people to do furry art.
Furry art like really upholds the art industry, I think. I think it is the crux that keeps the art industry going.
If you know when furry art is replaced, then when you know shit is bad. When those people,
The guys who draw like dog dicks, they're like Christ with the cross on their back, you know. They are bearing the sins of the world for us, for the rest of the artistic industry.
unknowingly.
Yeah.
Next step. Yeah, so going back to losing our jobs, which is clearly not the case if you're doing
Furry art.
doggos. But yeah, so I guess first of all, we don't really know what's gonna happen, right? We don't know.
Yeah.
We can expect things. We can think
Yeah.
things. Also, our point of view is point of view from people living from this job, so we're probably not all how do you say, impartial either, right?
Right.
Yeah, we all have a very partial
Yeah,
view.
yeah,
about
clearly.
everything.
It's just our point of view, so we might be wrong. But
No, we're right.
yeah, I think some jobs will be lost. I already think some jobs are being lost. But I don't think anything is set in stone, and I don't think that most people who already have a job or who are working in big enough companies for big enough productions are in danger, right? Things might evolve in a way which maybe requires less concept artists, or maybe makes it that some sort of indie games, or maybe very low budget games, they will go for the AI route. Just in the same way, like some people who want a cheap website, they're gonna go for a website generator, right? Rather than like us. So it's just gonna create, is gonna separate art consumers, which are gonna use AI, compared to artists who are gonna make art, right? And the art consumers might be in charge of some art departments in very low budget productions.
Yeah.
So yeah, it might get a bit harder. But myself personally, I really don't feel scared, or I really don't feel like I need to be worried too much about AI, just because in the production we're working, in the industry we're working, as we've been saying for almost an hour now, we just need people. It's too important, you know. AI has been also in many places, in compositing, in rotoscopy, all this kind of stuff. It's been in the industry for many years, and you still need people because you need the people behind it. So,
but it is important to remember that, for example, in compositing and rotoscoping, it did make people lose jobs. I'm not saying, to be fair, again, I'm not a compositor or a rotoscoper, but I think a lot of people in compositing and rotoscoping liked the fact that there were tools that helped them do the very boring parts of their job and speed it up. Just like I like using select color range in Photoshop to make sure that I can select out a specific thing faster. So yeah, I'm not going to sit here and be like, hey, look, I know it all. It's never going to affect us. I'm sure that it will, but I just think it's important to remember that we do have some control over how it affects us, and it's very much in the hands of the art community to do it. To me, like, at least off from my end, if anybody asks me to use it professionally, my response will be fuck off. I'm not going to do it. And if I do have to do it and it comes to a point where I have to use it to be viable in this industry, I won't be working in this industry anymore. It doesn't interest me. I think it's boring Google search. I have used it just to see how it is, and I just think it's tedious. It has nothing to do with art, and I don't give a shit about it. And yeah, I would rather become a fine artist or an illustrator or a comic book artist or homeless or like work on construction. Like I'd rather, if every art job became replaced with this, I wouldn't do art anymore. That's the honest truth, because the thing that I love about art is making it and expressing myself, and I can't do that with AI. So for me, I mean, that's my personal stance on it, and I think it's good if other people have a pretty hard line stance on it too, because you know, give them an inch, you give them a mile.
I think it's been sad to hear that there are some companies that have used it. I heard from some people use AI or not use AI, but encourage people to use AI. They go like, "Oh, why are you not using AI for this job? Like, you should be using AI, blah blah." And it's kind of sad, but as you said, it's probably just inevitable in like a smaller company or a company that like thinks that they need to produce like higher output. And
nothing's inevitable. There's no such thing as inevitable.
I didn't say inevitable.
You did say inevitable.
What is it? Did I say inevitable?
But nothing is guaranteed
smaller
to happen in life.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the important thing to remember. Is like, even if it feels like something's definitely going to happen, that doesn't mean that's the case.
It is again a novelty. I would, if I really try hard, I can understand that some people in the higher management see the numbers rather than seeing the humanity.
Yeah.
And they probably think, oh yeah, you know what, we can just use AI and get another direction done fairly quickly. Well, you know, the games are going to suck. I mean, the art direction of the games are going to suck. Yeah. It's going to look quite bad. It's going to not sell well. People are going to boycott it because, again, people have a choice. If a company is priding themselves on using AI to do art direction, then don't buy their games. You know, it's not hard. Like, just like this, many studios are being boycotted for some reasons. AI is also another reason to boycott them if you don't want to support it, of course. And you know, down the line, they might stop using AI because they don't feel like either it's doing art direction, or because they're getting fucking sued by Nintendo.
Yeah.
Or because they decide that they're losing too much money because people don't want to buy their games, or because they just need that.
Do you know what's a really good example of this is Embark, which I think overall has a pretty good reputation.
Yeah.
But Embark used AI voice actors for the finals.
I've seen that,
right?
Yeah.
And I've actually played the finals. I didn't play it for like a few months because I was like, you know, I don't like that they're using AI. But I thought I'll give it a go. It's a fun game. I'm not going to deny it. Like, I really enjoy it. But there's this whole thing about, they were talking about like, oh, well, we couldn't do it because the voice actors needed to be, you know, like interactive with the game. And, oh, we couldn't afford it because there's too many voice lines.
I mean, music has been interactive for years
Trust
now.
me, absolutely laughable.
Yeah.
If anybody from Embark is listening, get some fucking voice actors. It is one of the most laughable excuses I've ever heard. I played the game. The voice actors are not just interactive, they're wrong most of the time. Most of the time they're saying things that aren't happening in the game. There's like events that happen, like for example, gravity will turn off for a bit, and then once it's back on, the announcers will be like, whoa, it's so crazy that the gravity's off. And you're like, it's not, what the fuck? It's most of it, like, it's hilariously enough for AI, most of what they say is just misinformation.
I might be very wrong here, but I think they answered, I might be wrong. I think they said they would change that.
Well, they should.
Yeah.
And if they do, then I would be much more likely to play the game in a serious capacity and give them money. But it's a free game, and I'm not paying a single cent in microtransactions, in battle passes, in anything to them. I'm just going to use up their server capacity. You know, it's like, but yeah, they should have the funding. They're a pretty large studio to, I mean, even just get some of the guys in their team, like just find one guy in the team who has an announcer kind of voice and just be like, all right, we're going to give you a normal day wage and you can sit in the booth for 2 hours and do some voice acting.
I mean, I don't think it's that easy, but
I mean, dude,
I don't think it's a challenge for any video
They did
games.
it on Max Payne years ago, and Max Payne is one of the most popular games of all time.
No, clearly.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's not an easy task, but it's not a new task nor a hard task for a fairly developed video game studio.
But I think, again, it comes down to like what we were saying earlier. Like, you'd rather see the shitty sketch than the AI generated thing, right?
Yeah.
And to me, the idea of like, you know, I'm just thinking like from a marketing point of view, Embark being like, meet John and Trey. John's our marketing executive and Trey is our concept artist. They're your two voice actors in the game. That's funny. That's like good marketing. That's good for the game. It makes you feel like you have a relationship with the studio, whereas the AI thing just irritates me. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a relevant thing to talk about, and even with like Netflix had a show last year that came out which had AI generated backgrounds, and
yeah.
the whole Japanese audience boycotted it. Fucking good for them.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like studios and companies need to learn and see like what people think about stuff, because at the end of the day, the only thing that's going to stop them from using it is market cap or something legal happens to it.
Yeah. And yeah, so about the legal, I guess, should we talk about the legality of all of it?
Yeah.
It's not, so at the moment, we've been seeing a lot of legal issues with AI, and
Yeah, I mean,
most
how
people,
many fucking lawsuits are there going right now?
yeah, a lot. And most people who are using it are kind of pretending not to use it just because of the issue with it, with the legal issue, right? Or they want
Magic
to.
the Gathering. Yeah, two good examples of people who used AI and then claim they didn't.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of, it's at the moment too dangerous for any companies to using it, and that makes it that they also probably can't use it to the whole capacity of it. Because I'm assuming, once a company really wants to use Midjourney, then they're probably gonna develop some company tools to use Midjourney, which is going to make it probably more useful. But at the moment, it's just art directors trying to do shit in their, like for 10 weeks and then realizing that they're shit at it, and then they call professionals to help them, right? Which is great. I hope it continues this way.
Because that's the only use case I've seen it in as well, is like a client or an AD, none of the ADs that we work with, just to clarify as well, but like external ADs.
It's mostly clients.
Yeah. We'll use it to be like, hey, I want to have this character, and then they generate like 10,000 concepts that all look totally different, and they're like, something like this, and you're like, which one? And they're like, I don't know, something in there. And then you just sit there. It's not helpful, like a verbal description of the character would be far more useful, because then you have less stuff to go on. So yeah, that is the main capacity. And I think another interesting thing to note about that is whenever I've seen someone fucking use it, this is how the conversation starts. They literally go, well, I'm really sorry about this. I know it's really bad. Like, we shouldn't be using it, but we have used a little bit of Midjourney to start the project. I know it's shit. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. And like, they're so apologetic about it. And I think that is a good thing. Like, the fact that they acknowledge that it's not good, that it's not positive, it's bad for the industry. We want that to continue. Like, I want people to feel a little bit of shame about using it, to be honest.
Yeah, certainly I've seen that around as well.
I think AI boils down to be a art consumer tool and not an artist tool, right? Yeah. And the way I see it impact us the most, short, long term, and if we still have a job, of course, which I think we will, is that the art consumers, which are clients, which don't make art, they will be using AI quite a lot. So we will have to interact with more AI in our day-to-day life, but we will still have to make the art ourselves. Now, I think it causes a few issues. The first issue it causes is that we can lose, as any businessman, you don't want to give too many options to your client, because you want project to go forward. So you give them a set of options, they choose from a set of options, and then you go forward. I think AI goes against that, because you give them a set of options, and then they're going to be like, oh, you know what, I'll just try more options by myself in Midjourney. And then they go back to you the day after and they have like 60 more options. And then it's just a bit of a mess. So I think we'll have to deal with this a bit more in the future.
Yeah.
And it's not going to change our jobs too much as soon as AI remains kind of similar to the way it's made today, because I can't guess the future, of course. But it will impact more the clients and the way we have to deal with them, which is probably going to be a bit more tedious, a bit more explaining, well, this AI image is bad because blah, 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 blah. And then you go forward to it. And then you finish a project. Then you made something from scratch, of course. But of course, anyone will pretend to have a better understanding of what art is, because art is very reachable now.
Yeah.
At least what people think art is, which is the end product.
Yeah. I think even, I'm sure, like, for example, we've seen like more control net tools and stuff to, like, if you want to repose a character's head in Midjourney, there's like add-ons you can get in to do that now. And I just want to reiterate, because I think I did say it earlier, but for me, it doesn't matter how good it gets. I don't think it should ever be used. I can understand people using it, and like, especially from a corporate perspective, using it. But personally speaking, I don't care how good it is. I don't care how much better it is, how much faster it is. I don't feel in my heart like it should be used to replace a job that people enjoy. I think there are with every point of automatization that we see in our society, we want to focus on aspects that do not actually kind of like benefit society, that like drag, that make people sad and want to die and shit like that. And like art is an industry from across the spectrum, no matter what you do in art, that people look towards as something to enjoy.
It's an inspirational job, right?
It's an inspirational thing. It's something that people like wish they could be working in, right? Whenever I speak to people at parties who are like bankers or, you know, corporate asset managers or something, they're like, oh man, I wish I was doing something like that. You know, they always say, that sounds really fun.
Well, not everyone, of course, but...
Most of them, to be honest. I think most people that I interact with think the idea of working on movies and designing things and talking to people and collaborating is a very, like, enjoyable thing to theoretically do. They don't want to do it, obviously, but... The you know it's
the idea of it.
It's like you don't tell somebody you're an estate agent and they go, oh wow, that sounds really fun and interesting.
Like, certainly, even in banking, there's a lot of parts of the jobs that are just boring as shit. Like for sure, where people do this stuff and they don't want to do it at all. Then they do it for months, for years. They do crunch for like years. For these big corporations doing stuff that doesn't even, it's like mind-numbing stuff that you shouldn't even be doing, but they still do it because it pays well. Yeah. But like, of course, you know, they kind of just take it and accept it because that's where they end up and that's what gives them the money. Whereas like, if you do end up joining the art industry, you know, you join it through like tons of many hours to actually get to it. And once you are there, you don't want it to just be like taken away, just be like, okay, well, fuck you now because we need to make profit. You know, it's like, don't forget, like, people shouldn't be forgetting that art is here because it fulfills people. It's not, and that's why people pay for art. They don't pay for art because they just want to watch another Avengers movie.
Humans have been telling stories to each other forever, right? Like something that, like, literally, as far as, by the way, no, but like as far as humanity goes, we almost always have seen art and stories being told, and out of all the things we can automate that would make sense to automate, I really, and even if I try very hard to put myself in the other shoes, you know, not being the shoes of an artist, but being the shoes of an art consumer, I really don't see how that would beneficiate the humanity, nor beneficiate anyone. Yeah, it's like cutting the fun part.
Besides the whoever holds the stock, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing is like you have to remember, like, again, as a society, we have to make choices collectively about what we're doing. And look, I also want to say, like, there's so many worse problems we have to deal with than fucking AI. Like, the world's on fire. There's war zones everywhere. Like, there's so much worse shit that is so much more important to the survival of the human race, right, to deal with. But considering that it is our job and it is our lives, right, it is just bizarre to me that, like, is this anybody's idea of utopia? You know, like, isn't that the point of, like, the human project, is that we're always moving towards, you know, I mean, utopia literally translates to, like, within the kind of diegetics, is that the right word? I don't know. Whatever the original breakdown of the word is, it means like impossible city or something. It's the thing that you strive for that you'll never achieve, you know? And it's like, why would we strive towards an automation of things that we love? It just doesn't fucking make sense. Yeah. Like, that is not the society I want to live in. It's not the society I want my kids eventually to grow up in. Like, I want to live in a society where people can express themselves freely and enjoy that process and potentially be able to give that to other people so that they can enjoy it too.
Yeah. And so I guess this is why it's nice to hope and to try to go work towards a future where it doesn't have to be gone, but it can just be used as a tool for some people who want to use it, but not used as the tool to do it, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Like, you know, it will be a great replacement for Google. I can't wait to type an image and Google gives me a better image thanks to AI, you know, that'll be great. Or if I have to, as you said, find a very annoying angle of a tree for projects, and then it's going to take me 2 days, maybe not 2 days, but like 6 hours on Google search to find the right image. Yeah. Well, you know, maybe this could be a good use of it.
Yeah, certainly I can imagine it helping with some small art tasks, like when you drag a photo and maybe it starts to color grade it for you or something like that.
Again, that would take away your ability to color grade, though. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I think one thing to talk about as well is the exponential growth of AI. This idea that the AI is always going to get better, that it's just going to keep improving and improving, and that eventually it will somehow eclipse us. I think a super important thing to remember is that AI is trained on human data. And in that capacity, it's very difficult for AI to greatly eclipse human data because it is what it is. It's not like AI will ever create a piece of art that will go, well, a human could never have made that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's gonna get better than the average human. Yes.
Well, it already is better.
It's gonna get as good as the best humans. That's probably it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Yeah, it's true. It's gonna get as good as your average human. And if it becomes singular, what you were saying earlier, which is not at all what's being developed by OpenAI, by the way, that's totally different technology, from my understanding at all. At least, sorry, I can speak. But yeah, it is good. It's gonna get better. Most of the people starting to enter the industry are not as good as AI.
Yeah.
But because of all the reasons we've been talking about for like...
But no one's ever been as good as the guys at the top of the industry
Exactly,
anyway.
exactly.
Yeah, and you just keep fucking going anyway. There's always a bigger fish,
And
right?
for everything we've mentioned before, I don't think that's going to change any aspect of it.
I also want to say, like, you know, if you're listening to this and you are one of the people who's using AI and you'd be sitting there and you'd be going, these guys are so full of shit, fuck them.
So salty.
Number one, fair enough. Number two, here's a question from me to you as a consumer of these tools. When is using these tools too easy? One thing that I saw when version 4 came out for Midjourney was so many, because there was a big jump between version 3 and version 4 in terms of quality. And I saw a lot of comments literally saying, I kind of preferred version 3. It took more work to get to the final result. There were like full posts about it, right? And my question to those people is like, really, like, when is it going to stop being enjoyable for you? Because presumably, whilst like we said, it's not going to eclipse humanity in some way. It's going to make art that's as good as the best artists, essentially. Probably, maybe. Although that doesn't take into account the ideas and the original context and all this shit. But in terms of technical skills, yes. But when is it going to get to a point where you type in Supergirl flying through the air, punching the Hulk, and the first time it comes up with the correct image that you as we discussed, you don't know what you want, but it comes up with the correct image that you want, and then you just go,
Or you type S and then it automatically fills for you Supergirl's punching.
Yeah, and it gives you the perfect prompt and there's no work to do.
So you basically did nothing. You just typed S.
Are you still going to use it? Are you still going to use it at that point? That's because I don't fucking think so. I think what people like about AI now in terms of the user base, and if you're a user, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what people like about it is that it still requires some input, but not really that much to put in any great deal of effort. You can do it in half an hour and make something pretty good, and you go, wow, I'm such a great artist, and you feel better. But that half an hour will become 25 minutes, and then it will become 15, and eventually it might become 1 to 2 to 3 minutes. And when you're generating exactly the idea that you had in 1 to 3 minutes, is that going to be fun anymore? And are you going to still want to use it? Because to me, that sounds painful. Like, I would hate that.
Certainly when you have the reward system, you need to feel rewarded, you need to put in effort, essentially. I want to talk about the exponential growth. Just want to add my 2 cents into it. I think
that is what we're talking about.
Yeah, but I wanted to add about the fact that it's because it's taught on images, not just good images, but bad images as well. Its ability, it doesn't have as far as I know right now, it doesn't have the ability to learn fundamentals. And
no, obviously not.
no, but like, I think that is what would stop. Because really, every artist is only as good as their fundamentals, and some people put more money or like more time into certain fundamentals, so they are better at them than others. Like Craig Mullins is an incredible painter, but I'm sure his perspective is good, but maybe it's not as good as other artists that spend hours and hours and hours of learning perspective. And now they can do perfect perspective, just by painting. Like sketching,
But so are you saying that AI cannot replicate this level of skills?
Because it definitely can.
Because I agree. I think it definitely can.
I think
but it cannot grow beyond. It cannot replicate it to a perfect level. And
yeah, but even if it can, who cares? I think what's the thing that you touched on that I think is relevant is that because Craig Mullins maybe did less perspective than Scott Robertson, that's why Craig Mullins is Craig Mullins, rather than an AI that has, at the end of the day, a fairly perfect fundamental. Well, it doesn't understand these things, but it can
just
replicate
does
the
it.
fundamentals. It just does it.
Doesn't matter.
But that's why it's boring, because it doesn't have the kinks and the weirdness that makes human art human art. I think some of the most boring art out there at the moment, I've said this before, is the AI is the art that people produce by just having everything kit bashed and it's a 3D render. Like, that is the most boring stuff, because where's the imperfection that comes from your humanity in there? I'm not seeing how you model stuff. I'm not seeing you sculpt anything. I'm not seeing you design anything. You're just putting in a lighting thing. You're becoming a DP in 3D, right? And that's where I'm like, okay, well, also, like, I don't see the point in that art. And so I'm not going to see the point of it in AI. Like, it doesn't have the originality. It's got nothing.
Is art just like the correct imperfections that we then start to love?
No, not at all. I think art is a relationship between viewer and author. At the end of the day, I think the problem with AI art is there is no author.
Yeah.
Not in a meaningful sense, anyway.
Okay, let's imagine, because we're talking about how far the AI can go.
Yeah.
I'm an art director tomorrow.
Yeah. Ooh, good job on the raise, man.
Cheers, man. I'm grumpy and I don't want to use. I want to make art anymore, so I use an AI, and I make my AI. It's not quite there, but tools are advanced enough, so I can type, "Please, can the head turn a bit right?"
Yeah.
I have an educated eye myself, so I think I have. So, can you add a bigger nose to the character? Can you make it blue? Blah blah. I end up with the opportunity to make good changes, the opportunity to go fast, and the opportunity to make good final level work that fits the client's need. How would that work, do you think? Do you think...
Okay, I actually have a response to this. Because
exactly. That's why I'm asking questions, because what if in 5 years the AI becomes... I mean, it will be good enough, but becomes also clever enough or adaptive enough that we can change what we want on the fly to communicate to it the same way as we would ask changes to an artist?
Well, again, I don't think that matters how good it is. Again, because that's totally... it doesn't jive with my perspective on the world or anything like that, right? So, but I've already established that. But I think here is the real response to that, okay? Because I actually had a very similar conversation with an art director from another studio about this, who said something pretty similar. And I think the ultimate response to this is, how long does it last? Okay? Stay with me here. This might take a while. But if you're that guy, right? So, let's say in like 20 years, we're all going to hopefully be ADs, or we'll be drinking in a pub somewhere. And we're using these tools because we have trained eyes, we have the skills, we have like a IMDb page, which, hopefully has racked up a few good titles by then, blah, blah, blah. And we're using this stuff, right? What happens to the next generation of artists? So we replace more and more jobs with AI, okay? Everybody who's currently trained moves on to using AI, okay? And it's, like you said, it gets good enough, but it still needs direction, as all things do. And we say to ourselves, like, well, we're directing it, so it counts as good art, whatever. What happens to the next student who starts to study these things? Well, does a student even bother to learn how to accumulate a good fundamental eye anymore? Do they learn how to do value structure or perspective? Do they learn how to design? Or do they immediately jump onto AI? At which point, you then lose the trained eye. And as time period goes on, right, and more generations of concept artists come up. So, like right now, I think we're in the industry enough where we're now seeing the next group of students jump up, and that's great and rewarding. But what happens to them? What happens to the next group and the next group and the next group? The trained eye gets killed.
They just get discouraged, and eventually
they get discouraged, and
you can go as far as, are they even studying art?
Yeah,
right. If art is bypassed by AI, is there any point of studying it anymore in the future? So what you're saying is that it will slowly get to the...
It gets worse and worse and worse.
You will get to the death of craftsmanship and the skill of art, which will be fully replaced then by AI.
Well, it's a very... And of course, I'm aware that it's a very extreme argument that I'm making here. It's like the logical extreme of this scenario, right? Which, question, it's like the slippery slope fallacy and stuff like that. But I do think there's some validity in it, because I constantly talk to students now who ask me about should they even bother learning art because of AI. And those students learn less skills because of it, and they put less time in because they spend more time being depressed, and it affects them. And so now, potentially, what we're dealing with, like especially over COVID, when all this AI stuff really started to blow up, there's probably a good gap of students, like that, like those 3 years where we were all like really, really scared of it, there's probably less students who studied art during that period because they were scared of it. And so how many people are there going to be to replace that jump? You know what I mean? Like there's going to be a gap of artists that we need.
Yeah.
And in the same way, like, you know, even now, and I hate to bring this back, I feel like I'm such a zealot about fucking kitbash at this point, but, you know, kitbash has its uses. But we've seen so many students, because of the popularization of extreme uses of kitbash, who also now don't have any fundamental skills. And when they join studios, that's what you spend all the time teaching them is, hey, this is how you fucking design. This is how you paint. This is how you sculpt. They don't have the fundamental skills. So you already have a use case right now in the industry of exactly what happens when people start losing skills and stop learning the things that actually matter about art. And you can already see it.
And you can see like that it's more and more difficult to find people who have like original and interesting ideas, and it's something that really becomes difficult and important to work on as you join the industry.
And like just like jump on that, like the vast majority of time that I spend, and I've taught a lot of students at this point over the last like few years now, the most common thing is idea generation. Mm-hmm. I spend so much time writing briefs to students, teaching them how to think creatively, how to actually have a creative process rather than just, oh, I'm going to copy this thing. It is the most common issue. And after, not to say like, you know, oh, I'm so great, but a lot of the students I've worked with, once they've actually put in that one project that has some originality behind it, they find work because their technical skills were okay, but they just didn't have anything original to bring to the table. And once they do that, they go, oh, well, actually, this studio hired me now.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you can already see exactly what fucking path the narrative that you like spoke about will lead to, because it's already here. It's just through a different means of problems.
This narrative would mean that all of us also would have kind of given up and would be fine with using AI. Yeah. And that all the laws about AI would have been fully gone through pro AI.
Yeah.
And that consumers will be perfectly happy to be watching Avengers 55 with Iron Man's pink version in there.
And you can pause it and say like, less clothes on Captain America. And it goes re-rendering.
So which again, I don't think is going to happen. But even then, by the way, I personally think that I don't think we can make a good movie if it was just me in my AI.
I mean, yeah,
me on. If it was Daniel, holy shit. Holy shit.
Feeding off of data, of Reddit knowledge.
No, but you know, like even if I develop I become much better than I am in the future, and I'm able to create everything very nicely by myself using AI, then I would like the discussions. I would like someone.
But that's because you're not an egotistical maniac. You're a person who is not delusional and self-aggrandizing, and you know you're somebody who understands that you're a person and you have strengths and weaknesses, and there are things that other people are better at than you, and like that is what a great creative should have. Don't say it. I can see Jules is about to say something sarcastic. Don't say it.
I am a robot.
All right,
it's very sarcastic.
Shall we start to wrap up?
It's been a long one, guys. Wow.
Yeah.
This is almost like it's been long awaited.
There's so much to talk about in this. I mean, look, in the end of all of this, I just want to say, like, AI is horrifyingly new, and anybody who's sitting out there and telling you that they know exactly how to predict the future is full of shit. Most researchers at this point, the big next step in AI kind of evolution, if you look it up, is removing black box, which is where essentially they don't understand right now how AI actually even come to the conclusions they come to. And so the main kind of research they're doing is into making that a less opaque process where they can actually understand why, for example, AIs often like hallucinate things or why they make certain artistic decisions, right? And that's a long way away, and that will probably be the next big evolution we see in terms of actually understanding how these things work. I think, you know, no matter how good this technology gets, no matter what it does, it's important that as a community, we stick together. We keep supporting each other. We encourage each other to make art. Don't give in to the doomerism that some people do. Don't give in to using this stuff. Remind yourself every day, especially if you're in the industry. I think this really goes out to people in the industry. Don't fucking give in. You do have some power in the situation, and use that power to try and push things in a positive direction. If you're in a big studio, it really does matter what you do because you set the direction for the rest of the industry. I'm very happy to say that all the studios I've worked at, which have been some fairly large studios, have all made some stances and some attempts to limit the use of this tech. Obviously, I'm not a spokesperson for anybody, and I'm not saying that will always stay the case, but I'm happy to have worked at places which haven't just jumped on this bandwagon for the sake of it.
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. And I also would kind of, it might be very stupid for me to say that, or how do you say, not childish, naive, but it's a creative industry where a lot of passionate people work, including your bosses, or a lot of the time the clients also are passionate.
Yeah.
So I kind of trust humanity on this one. I've liked the way it's been going the past 2 years. I think it's been going in a nicer way I would have expected in the past. And yeah, I think it's a creative industry, collaborative industry that relies on people's passion and people's dedication. And I don't think it could run really efficiently without that. And therefore, I think it's just going to continue going the way it's been going. Might be some changes. Some changes might be not as fun as we'd hope for. But I think in average, we'll still need collaboration and human touch to create something unique and something valuable.
Yeah. You got anything you want to close on, stuff?
I wanted to say also, like, every artist who is in the industry, you can definitely make a difference if you just try to push back against it, or you would be surprised. You can persuade a lot of people on your side if you just talk enough to them. Yeah.
If you're a student, don't do AI. I have never seen someone getting hired by showing any AI work.
Yeah.
So,
and don't lie about using it either.
Yes, like
Just we know.
Yeah.
Like
and also just by like, as if in case it wasn't obvious, AI is extremely badly seen by everyone in the industry. Even people who kind of use it because they're on smaller projects or because they don't have as money, they kind of, as Daniel said, they kind of feel ashamed by it. So at the moment, I see anything but negative stuff around AI. No one is very stoked about it, or no one is happy to be using it, and no one is happy to see it anyway. So just don't do AI, because that's gonna, if you really don't want to work in the industry, do AI. That's great. You're gonna be in your room doing fun stuff if it brings you joy. But if you want to work in the industry, learn the skill, because that's how people get hired so far.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'll be.
And if you want to win the Concept 101 competition that we do each year, don't use AI, which goes out to the guy who used AI in his entry, and we fucking saw it.
Yeah.
Get good, bozo. Anyway, yeah. So that's kind of the end of today's episode. I think just to underscore everything we said, let's try our best to preserve a job that we all love, even if some days we hate it. It's still an amazing job to have. Fundamentally, compared to like everything else that most human beings do, this is such a good industry to work in, and I think we all want to keep it going for future generations and to make people happy.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed listening to today's episode, or if you have any thoughts about what we've spoken about, please leave a comment down below. Subscribe and follow us on Spotify or wherever you have listened to this. And yeah, we release episodes every 2 weeks, and we hope to see you for the next one. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.